The halls of the Draenari War Temple echoed with roars of victory. Banners of conquered worlds hung high above, each one a reminder of Draenari dominance. Warriors in black armor stood proud, their reptilian features lit by the golden fires of the ceremony pit. They had just done the impossible. They had taken the last free world in the Orion Belt. No one had stood against them. No one could. For over 300 years, the Draenari Empire had expanded across star systems like wildfire. Their soldiers were genetically enhanced, trained from childhood, and feared by every species they encountered. They called themselves the final blade of the galaxy. And now, they believed the galaxy was theirs. High Warlord Krezek stepped onto the stone platform, his voice cold and sharp. We have crushed every resistance. No planet remains outside our grip. The stars, if themselves bend to our command. The crowd roared again, fists slammed against armor. Some chanted no equal, no rival, but far away, in a dark war chamber beneath the temple. Something else was happening. A lower-ranking officer named Tehran studied a strange data feed on his console. His eyes narrowed. There was one world, one system left unclaimed. A death, blue and green, old designations from a forgotten archive labeled it Cell-3 Earth. Tyron muttered. The planet wasn't on any priority list. It was marked hostile terrain and low population. No trade, no treaties, no recorded battles. It was just there, like a rock left unturned. TIRAN forwarded the data to High Command. The next day, a small war briefing took place. Only 10 officers attended. One of them, Captain Riddick, was young, sharp-tongued, and arrogant. His armor gleamed. His war record was clean: 0 defeats. Earth, he laughed. That rock the records say it's a death world, but with only one species, primitive, no formal alliances, no fleets, probably hiding in caves. General Kalaz frowned. Still, they've been untouched for too long. If there's even a chance of hidden technology or resistance, we must investigate. Riddick rolled his eyes. Permission to take a scout fleet. Sir, I'll bring back their flag. Permission granted, Kalaz said. Keep it quiet. No need to alarm the council. Riddick stood and saluted. It will be done in a week. The fleet left the next morning: 6 destroyers, 2 recon vessels, and a communication cruiser. They entered Sol space quietly, with stealth fields active. Everything seemed calm. They detected small settlements on Earth's surface. Energy readings were low. No orbital defenses. No warships in sight. Not even satellites that looked dangerous. See, Riddick grinned at his officers. Primitive. This is going to be fun. He ordered the first contact team to drop into the largest city. Their mission was simple: deliver a demand of surrender and return with data. A dozen soldiers in black armor descended through Earth's cloudy skies, landing in the center of what once was a city, silent, broken, and half overgrown. Dust blew through shattered streets. Buildings stood like ghosts. No signs of people, no power, just quiet. Area's dead, one soldier said. Through comes move forward, replied the team leader. Scan for life. They advanced slowly, sensors active, but there was no warning, just a flash, then screams. In the command ship above, Riddick watched the feed. The screen blinked once, twice, then static. What? He snapped. Re-establish contact. The tech officer tried, hands flying across the console. No response. Transmission lost. Deploy second team. Rydek's voice was sharper now. The second group dropped minutes later, armed heavier. They touched down near the same location. The ruins were unchanged, until they found something new. A helmet. It belonged to one of the first squad. Inside it, a small note written in Old Terran English. It said, "Not soldiers. Not anymore." Then, the second team vanished. Riddick stood frozen. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Earth was a forgotten rock, unimportant and unprotected, but now, 2 elite squads trained Draenari shock troops were gone without a trace. No bodies, no wreckage, just silence. Send the drones. He ordered. Scout drones flew over the area. Still nothing, but as they scanned deeper, the images became strange. Heat signatures showed movement in the trees, in the buildings, but nothing that made sense. Patterns too fast for animals. Shapes that shifted like shadows. And then, one moment of clarity. A single figure looked straight at the drone camera. Human. Half covered in dirt. Face scarred, eyes cold. Then the feed cut. Riddick paced the command deck. His officers watched him, unsure. This can't be right, he whispered. Another officer, older and grimmer, finally spoke. Maybe Earth isn't what we thought. Riddick turned sharply. It's a primitive world. No military, no fleet, no command center. The officer shook his head slowly. Maybe, but if this is how they greet visitors, I don't think we're facing soldiers. He looked at the helmet again. At the words written inside, Riddick asked, "Then what are they?" The officer didn't blink. Monsters. That night, a single, broken signal came through. Audio only, static, damaged, but the voice was clear. A whisper, a warning. "Tell your empire, we are not the prey." Then, silence. Cliffhanger ending. Back at the Draenari War Temple, General Kalaz receives the message. His hands tighten around the armrest of his chair. He watches the transmission again, that voice. There is no video, no name, just the sound of someone who had seen too much war and survived. Kalas turns to his council. Send more ships, he says. Send a full battalion. I want to know what killed our best. But deep inside, he already knows. They weren't fighting a backwater species. They had awakened something far worse, something that doesn't just survive war, it thrives in it. They didn't come in peace. They came to find out what killed their soldiers. And to erase it. Captain Riddick stood tall on the bridge of the Vornok, staring down at the blue and green death world below. His pride was wounded. 2 squads lost. No explanation. No bodies. He clenched his jaw. We underestimated them. That won't happen again. 10 dropships launched through thick clouds, heading toward the ruined human city where the last team had vanished. Draenei soldiers inside checked their gear, locked their weapons, and tried to ignore the tension building in their stomachs. No one spoke. Each one of them had seen the footage, what little was left. Static, a helmet, a message scrawled by hand. Not soldiers, not anymore. These things, the humans, had no rules, no mercy. They didn't fight like normal warriors. They hunted. Still, they were Draenei. They didn't run. Not yet. The dropships touched down in formation, steel ramps hissing open. 50 elite soldiers moved into the broken city streets, scanning every shadow. The buildings were crumbling, overgrown with vines. It felt like a graveyard, but too fresh, too recent, as if the city had died yesterday. They found no enemy, civilians, not even animals. Just silence. Rydek's voice crackled through. Comes search, track, find them. They moved in squads, clearing buildings one by one. Still nothing, and that made it worse. Where are they? Whispered one Draenei scout. Another answered, maybe they're watching like before. The squads moved deeper into the city. The streets narrowed. Fog drifted in from the forest line. One squad entered a broken mall, flashlights cutting through the dark. That's when the first sound came. Tap, 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 a slow, steady knock on metal. They turned toward it. Guns ready. One of them whispered, that's not echo, that's deliberate. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the Malcolm, deep and human. You didn't come here to fight. You came here to die. Gunfire erupted. The Draenei panicked and sprayed the shadows, but there was nothing, only echoes. Smoke. And then the first soldier dropped. Throat cut. No sound. No warning. The squad fell back, dragging the body. But another one vanished, pulled upward, into the dark rafters. No scream. Just silence. Command. We have contact. Multiple hostiles. Unknown location. Static. The signal was jammed back. On the Vornok, Riddick slammed his fist on the console. What's happening down there? A technician shouted. They've cut. Comes jamming field. Primitive but strong. It's coming from the ruins. Send reinforcements now. On the ground. The other squads moved faster now. Nervous, they checked corners, aimed high, moved in pairs. But it didn't help. The humans didn't fight from the front. They attacked from above, from below, from places no soldier would expect. One soldier was found with a knife made of bone, embedded in his visor. Still warm. Another was discovered, alone, body untouched, but eyes wide open, as if he had died from fear alone. A young Draenei officer, Lieutenant Rek, took cover behind a fallen wall. He tried to regroup his team. Only 2 soldiers remained near him. He looked up and froze. A figure stood on the rooftop across the street. Tall, broad, holding a weapon older than any. Draenei design, black steel, with scratch marks on the grip. A human rifle. And beside the figure, others appeared. 4, then 6, then 10. They wore mismatched armor, no uniforms, just scars, war paint and heavy boots. One of them raised a hand and pointed at Rek. That was the signal. Explosions tore through the street, mines hidden under rubble. Shrapnel hit Draenei legs, cutting tendons. Smoke filled the area. The humans vanished into it, moving like ghosts. Rek screamed into his damaged comms. They were waiting for us. He fired blindly, coughing on the smoke. That's when he heard a whisper behind him. You made a mistake coming here. He turned to shoot, but the last thing he saw was the butt of a human rifle. Darkness. Hours later, Riddick stood alone in the war room of his ship, staring at the failed landing reports. 32 soldiers missing, 12 confirmed dead, 6 alive but mentally broken. No. The forest near the ruined Earth City was thick with mist and silence. It wasn't natural silence. It was the kind that made trained soldiers check their weapons twice and glance over their shoulders. The kind that didn't come from nature, from something watching. The remaining Draenei squads moved slowly, cautiously. After the ambush at the mall, Riddick had split the surviving soldiers into tight units. New orders were simple. Find the humans, capture one alive. No mistakes. But the Draenei weren't hunting. They were being hunted. Squad 9 moved through the tall trees in tight formation. Their armor clanked softly, their motion sensors scanning every direction. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no wind, not even the usual hum of insects. Something's wrong, whispered Unit Commander Trask, his voice tense. This forest is too still. Then they saw it. A trail of fresh blood, bright red. drops leading deeper into the trees. Trask raised his hand, motioning for silence. The team advanced. They reached a small clearing. At the center stood a single Draenari soldier, one of the missing. He was alive, barely, kneeling, arms at his sides, helmet gone, eyes wide. Trask called out, "Identify." The soldier didn't answer. They moved closer. That's when they saw the carvings in the trees. Around them, simple scratches in ancient Terran script: "We don't fight fair." Trask's blood ran cold. Boom. A thunderous explosion tore through the clearing. Dirt and fire flew in every direction. 3 soldiers were instantly vaporized. The others scattered, screaming for cover. Gunfire erupted from the tree line, not from energy rifles, but from ballistic weapons. Old, loud, brutal bullets punched through armor like paper. One soldier was pulled into the fog, his screams cut off mid-breath. Trask shouted, fall back, but it was too late. From the shadows, SGT Hale stepped into view. His face was streaked with war paint. His armor was mismatched human military vest, scavenged alien plating, and a knife strapped to his thigh. He held a large Terran rifle, an old model, reliable, heavy, deadly. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. With perfect calm, he fired one straight through Trask's helmet. The Draenari commander dropped like a stone. Another soldier turned to run, but a knife flew from the trees and buried itself in the back of his neck. More humans appeared around Hal, his squad, each one scarred, silent, deadly. These were not new soldiers. They were survivors, monsters shaped by war. High above, Riddick watched from the command ship, his fists clenched. His face was pale, angry, confused. "Why aren't they dying?" he yelled. "They're humans, one species, one planet." A technician answered carefully, "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They don't follow formations. They don't use standard codes. Their weapons are from different centuries." Riddick growled. "Then how are they so effective?" No one answered. Meanwhile, deep underground in an old human command bunker, SGT Hale removed his helmet. His squad gathered around a dusty war table, lit by old power cells. The room was silent. One of them, a scarred woman named Briggs, leaned over the map. 3 squads wiped out. 2 more scattered. "They're sending reinforcements." Hale lit a match, lit a cigarette, and nodded. "Let M come." Another soldier, Callum, the quiet one, asked, "Why do you think they came here in the first place?" Hale smoked. "They thought we were weak." He looked around at the others. "But Earth doesn't make soldiers. It makes monsters." Back in orbit, the Draenari Council called an emergency war meeting. Dozens of generals appeared via hologram. Ryddek stood in the center. He played the recovered video from the forest. Ambush grainy footage showing Hale's team striking like predators. One human moved without sound. Another set traps with ancient tech. One snapped a Draenari's neck with her bare hands. Gasps filled the chamber. "These are veterans," Riddick said bitterly. "They've fought wars for generations. Their tactics don't follow logic. Their minds are shaped by pain, not honor." A warlord growled, "Send a battalion. Burn the surface." But General Callas raised a hand. "No." Everyone turned to him. Callas looked at the screen, at Hale's face, at the eyes. "They're not just fighters," he said. "They're experienced in death. They live in it." Hours later, Draenari scout drones flew low across Earth's forests. Each one recorded strange messages carved into rocks and trees. "Leave now, you're not ready. This is where empires die." Then one drone caught something terrifying. A pile of Draenari helmets stacked into a pyramid next to a burning Terran flag, and written in blood across a wall nearby, "You landed on a death world. Did you expect anything less?" That night, a single transmission broke through the jamming field. Riddick rushed to the console. It was a voice common human. It said, "Send more. We haven't stretched in years." End of transmission. Cliffhanger ending. Riddick stood in silence, staring at the screen. This wasn't war. This was something else. Something older, dirtier, unstoppable. He turned to his officers. "Get me more troops," he said. "Double the armor, triple the weapons." He paused and prepared for urban combat. Because now he realized the battlefield wasn't Earth. The battlefield was fear itself. The Draenari troops no longer marched with pride. They moved like hunted animals. Eyes scanned every shadow. Fingers stayed tight on triggers. Even the wind through the leaves sounded like footsteps now. Since arriving on Earth, they had lost more than soldiers. They had lost control. Captain Riddick stood at the edge of the forest, staring into the trees. His face was tired, his armor dirtied from ash and dirt. He had barely slept in 2 days. He called out to his tech officer, "Any visuals from the scout drones?" The officer shook his head. "Only static. It's the terrain. Their jamming is too strong." "It's not the terrain," Riddick muttered. "It's them." He turned to the remaining forces, nearly 100 Draenari, fully armed, armored, and trained. And still, they looked scared down in the trees. The Terrans were moving. SGT Hall crouched beside an old fallen satellite dish, eyes scanning the enemy positions through binoculars. Beside him, Briggs set up an old landmine, one she built from spare parts and alien scrap. Behind them, the rest of the squad blended with the forest, not like soldiers, like predators, Harley whispered. "They've stopped pushing forward." Briggs smiled. "Because they're learning." Learning won't save them. Up above, the Draenei tried a new tactic. They dropped listening beacons across the forest designed to catch even the smallest sound, but the Terrans moved without making a sound. Not one branch cracked, not one step echoed. At night, the Draenei set up flares, drones, sentries, even laser nets, but somehow, every morning something was missing. A helmet from a sleeping soldier, ammo crates moved, one body turned up hanging from a tree, with a message carved into his chest, still watching. Panic spread. Inside the Draenei camp, a group of young warriors argued with their commander. This isn't a war. We can't see the enemy. They don't fight like anyone we've trained for. Are they even human? Riddick stepped in. They're human, he said firmly, but they're not your kind of human. He showed them a picture. SGT, HaleHarden.com. Wearing old war tattoos, this man fought in 7 Earth wars, lost more than he ever won, and yet he's still here. Riddick pointed to the map of Earth. This planet forged them. You see trees and animals. They see cover and weapons. He looked into his soldiers' eyes. We came here thinking we were hunters, but this world made monsters that can't be hunted. Meanwhile, Hale's squad prepared the next trap. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Each one knew exactly what to do, where to strike, where to vanish. Callum, the silent one, crawled into a Draenei path and buried a small explosive under some leaves. Then he left a helmet beside it, cracked and bloodied. It worked. 2 Draenei scouts found the helmet and rushed in. One leaned down. Click. Boom. Another to gone. By the 4th night, the fog thickened. The forest swallowed the Draenei lights. The soldiers slept in pairs, weapons in their hands. But even then, something strange happened. A soldier woke up to find a Terran knife stabbed in the ground beside his bedroll. Just the knife, no footprints, no blood, no sound. He screamed. Riddick came running, furious, but all the soldier said was, "They could have killed me." Later that same night, one of the Draenei commanders heard soft movement outside his tent. He stepped out, weapon raised. There was no one. Only a small toy soldier on the ground. Old Earth plastic, painted in camouflage. It was holding a knife. Panic turned to fear. Fear turned to madness. One squad opened fire on shadows in the trees, burning through all their ammo in 30 seconds. They hit nothing, just barked out. Another squad found one of their own, tied to a tree, still breathing, gagged, eyes full of terror. When they pulled the gag off, he whispered they were in the trees. They moved like ghosts. They let me live to tell you. Back in orbit, Draenei General Callas watched a live feed from a body cam. Brief flashes of forest, screaming, and a voice yelling, "They're not fighting fair." He turned to his war advisors. "This is no longer a mission. It's a mistake." One advisor said, "Should we retreat?" Callas didn't answer. He just stared at Earth and muttered, "A planet that raises killers isn't a planet we want to rule." That night, deep in the fog-covered trees, Hale's squad gathered around a fireless camp. Briggs sharpened a blade. Callum adjusted a scope. The others watched the forest silently. Harley took out a small comms device and sent a short message to an old orbital satellite still linked to Earth's core systems. The message was short. "They're breaking, let them." Then send the real message. Cliffhanger ending. In the video didn't lie. General Callas and the Draenei High Command sat in stunned silence as the last frames flickered across the ship's war room screen. Humans in trenches, humans on fire, humans charging at tanks with nothing but blades, and they weren't fighting aliens, they were fighting themselves. One Draenei war advisor finally spoke, his voice dry. "They practice war on their own kind." Callas didn't turn from the screen. "Not practice, it's their way of life." He closed the feed with a heavy hand and looked toward the planet below. "I want to know who we're really facing down there, on the surface, in the fog-covered ruins outside the forest." SGT Hale and his squad stood atop a half-destroyed human building, staring into the smoke. Below them, the remains of a Draenei platoon smoldered. Hale's breathing was calm. He wiped soot from his rifle barrel and checked the edge of his knife. Briggs crouched beside him, her armor scratched, fingers covered in dried blood. She was grinning. "I think they finally understand." Hale gave a slow nod. "They're still counting on numbers." Callum, the team's quietest, replied, "Then we break their math." This was Hale's squad. SGT Hale, EarthWarVeteran.com. Tactical. Once lost his entire unit during the siege of Carthos Prime and kept fighting. Briggs, ex-special forces, sharp tongue, sharper knives. She once fought for 6 hours with a broken arm and 2 bullets in her chest. Callum, sniper, doesn't speak unless it matters. His bullets do most of the talking. Reed, explosives expert, youngest of the group, but deadly with traps. Known for his favorite phrase, "Boom solves most problems." Doc Mera, the medic, soft-spoken, cold hands, knows how to keep you alive or make sure you don't get up again. This wasn't a squad. It was a survivors guild, forged in war, bonded by blood, and sent into retirement long ago, until Earth called them back. Flashback. Months earlier, a hidden bunker under the rocky hills of Earth, an AI called Minecore reactivated Emergency Protocol 19. full spectrum defense. One name appeared on the file: SGT Elias Hale. Status: retired, dangerous, alive. Present day. Briggs tossed a captured Draenari knife into the dirt. You ever seen one of them fight without a squad? Hale shook his head. No spine. They collapse alone. Callum tapped his scope. Reinforcements incoming. 2 dropships, maybe 40 hostiles. Reed perked up. Finally, they didn't set up a firing line. They didn't prepare trenches. Instead, they walked into the shadows of the city and vanished. When the Draenari dropships landed, everything looked quiet. No humans in sight. No fire. No sound. Commander Urok, a newly deployed officer with glowing yellow armor, stepped out first. His troops spread wide. Thermal scans. He asked. Clear movement. None. He nodded forward. 15 minutes in, the first trap triggered. A pressure plate disguised under broken concrete. Boom. The lead squad went flying. Screams echoed through the ruined buildings, then silence again. Urok shouted, "Spread out, find them." 10 minutes later, a sniper round punched through the skull of a Draenari soldier. No sound before, no flash after. Another explosion. Then a tripwire triggered a grenade chain that cut through an alley squad, and then they saw it. Hale. Standing in the open. No helmet, just eyes cold as ice. Urok pointed there. Fire. But by the time the soldiers reacted, Hale was gone. Only smoke remained. Inside the buildings, Briggs moved like a shadow, slicing throats and vanishing. Reed dropped explosives and timed his detonators perfectly. Mera moved between squads, finishing the wounded with surgical precision. Callum stayed silent on a rooftop, counting headshots like a math lesson. Urok screamed into his cums, "They're not fighting. They're erasing us." One of his troops shouted back, "I saw a girl, she smiled at me and then blew up my team." Another replied, "They're not squads, they're nightmares." Then another voice came through. One Urok didn't recognize. It was human. It was Hale. "You should have stayed in space." By the end of the hour, only 6 Draenari were left alive from the 40 that landed. None of them held weapons. None of them spoke. They simply sat, shaking, some weeping, surrounded by the sound of Earth's wind. Back on the Draenari command ship, General Carlos watched the casualty reports arrive. 40 cent. 34 dead, 6 mentally broken. 0 human bodies recovered. His assistant turned to him slowly. "Sir, the humans have names. The ones doing this, they've been identified." Kalaz read the file. Each one had a record of survival from impossible battles. Each one was declared unfit for peace. They weren't called back for duty, Kalas said. They were unleashed. Down on Earth, inside the broken city, Hale gathered his team. Briggs passed him a new weapon taken from a dead Draenari. Didn't take it. "I don't need alien toys," he muttered. "Ours work fine." He turned to the squad. "Next phase," Reed smiled. "Lure the big fish." Callum simply loaded another round. Hale gave a small nod. "They want war. Let's give them hell." Cliffhanger ending. The Draenari fleet above Earth repositioned. They were preparing to deploy their elite command unit-trained assassins, cybernetic warriors, and orbital strike support. At the center of this new group stood one warrior known only as the Executioner. The order was clear: end the humans. Burn the surface if you must. The Draenari fleet hung above Earth like a silent judgment. Over 20 warships now in full combat formation. The atmosphere shimmered with the heat of their engines. From orbit, Earth looked small and defiant. Inside the main war carrier, the air was thick with tension. The Executioner stood alone at the head of the strike chamber. He was taller than any other Draenari. His armor was jet black with red scars running across the plating. His face was hidden under a cold metal mask. No one had ever seen his true skin, not even the generals. He had never failed, not once. The soldiers around him said nothing. They didn't need to, because when the Executioner moved, planets burned down on Earth. Inside the ruins, SGT Hale stood atop a broken satellite dish. His eyes tracked the clouds as they shifted unnaturally. He could feel it, their changing strategy. He muttered. Briggs joined him, chewing on a piece of dry ration. What gave it away? The sudden wind, or the fleet realigning in orbit? Callum lifted his scope. Looking up, something dropped, fast, heavy, and elite. Reed asked. Mera replied softly. "More than that. They're scared. Scared enough to send something they usually keep in cages." The Terran squad moved fast. No orders needed. They were already packing, relocating, setting new traps. But Hale didn't run. He left something behind. A small transmitter, buried under metal, activated with a breath. Meanwhile, inside the Draenari High Council ship, General Callas sat in the command chamber as a new signal arrived. It wasn't jamming. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't an attack. It was a message from Earth. "Play it," Callas said. Quietly. The screen blinked, then static. Then the video began. The image was rough, old-style, and monochrome. It showed cities burning not by alien hands, but by humans. Footage of Terran soldiers in muddy trenches, others screaming across frozen wastelands, nuclear fire rising behind them, then grainy news clips from Earth's own past, civil wars, biological plagues, armored tanks running over streets, a man throwing a Molotov at another soldier, then smiling. Voiceover played softly. "You came expecting battle. But Earth doesn't battle. Earth endures. Earth adapts. Earth teaches pain. You sent warriors, we sent survivors. The screen then shifted. SGT Hale appeared. Blood on his cheek, dirt on his jaw, eyes sharp, voice steady. We didn't start this, but we'll end it. He leaned closer to the camera. This is your last warning, pull back, because the next ones we send aren't even as kind as us. The message cut to black. Inside the command ship, Kalas whispered. What does that mean? His tech officer paled. Sir, it means these are just the first line. Back on Earth, the executioner finally landed. He didn't use a ship. He dropped from orbit like a falling meteor. He crashed into the ground near the edge of the ruined city, slamming into the pavement hard, enough to create a crater. Smoke and dust rose around him. Draenari troops stood at a distance, watching from cover. When the smoke cleared, the executioner stood still. No damage, no movement, until his blade snapped open 2 meters long, buzzing with deadly energy. He walked forward without a word. The Terran squad watched from a rooftop. Hidden Reed whistled. He's big. Mara frowned. He's more than big. That armor's resistant to almost everything. Briggs cracked her knuckles. Let's see how he likes old-school knives. Callum simply took aim and said, we go loud. Hale shook his head. Not yet. He pulled out an ancient detonator switch covered in tape and dust. We lure him. Elsewhere, Draenari forces tried to retake a command post near the city. Centered out, they failed again. Traps, mines, old radio frequencies that jammed their systems, but worse. Fear had spread. Many of the soldiers no longer feared the humans. They feared the silence that came before them. The feeling that you were being watched by something smarter, older, and crueler than you. The executioner, however, did not fear. He moved through ruins, ignoring traps, ignoring fire. He stepped through a collapsing wall, only to find Briggs standing there alone. She smiled. Nice armor, she said. He charged. She ran straight into a narrow alley lined with bombs. He followed. Boom, boom, boom. The explosions went off in perfect rhythm. Fire lit the skies. Concrete shattered. The entire street collapsed into rubble, but as the dust settled, he stepped out, limping slightly. Armor cracked but still standing. Hale watched from a tower above. All right, he muttered. Let's adjust. Callum asked. Permission. Hale nodded. One shot. See. Far beneath the Earth's surface, below the ruins, the bunkers, and the ashes of old wars, something ancient stirred. It hadn't moved in decades. It hadn't been needed until now. The pulse signal from Hale's squad reached the deep chamber. Lights flickered on dim orange, like fire in the dark. Hydraulic doors unlocked. A massive vault hissed open. Inside, machines the world had forgotten came alive. Not machines of peace. Not tools. War engines back above, in orbit. General Callas stared at the data screen. The pulse from Earth had been sent across layers of secure, encrypted channels buried deep in old Terran defense networks. But they hadn't gone off-world. They had gone down. Callas turned to his advisor. What's buried in that planet? The answer came slowly. A weapon. Maybe a warning. On Earth's surface, SGT Hale ran across the rooftops with Briggs and Reed at his side. The executioner had survived every trap they threw at him, and now he was getting closer. Too close. We need time. Briggs hissed, breathing hard. Hale clicked his earpiece. Mara, Callum, you in position. Callum replied with a quiet watching. Mara said, ready, but something's wrong. What do you mean, something below us? It's waking up. Deep under their feet, in an ancient Terran vault, known only as Blackside Echo, dozens of sealed pods unlocked. Inside each one lay a soldier, cryofrozen, muscles still, heart silent. Until now, the pulse from the surface ran through their systems. One by one, their eyes opened. Not new soldiers, Earth's last resort veterans, the kind who were too dangerous to keep walking freely during peace, too effective, too damaged, too necessary. On the ruined streets above, the executioner smashed through a building wall like it was made of paper. His senses locked onto movement. Heartbeat detected. It was Mera. Alone. She stared him down from across the empty street. Not moving, he charged. And as he did, a shadow fell from above. Hell. Dropping from a rooftop. He landed hard behind the giant and fired 2 rounds into the executioner's back. They didn't stop him, but they got his attention. The executioner turned, blade spinning to strike. Briggs appeared at his side and slammed an explosive into the exposed section of his armor. You missed a spot. Boom. The blast sent the executioner to his knees. He roared a sound, more machine than living being, swiped his blade in a wild arc, nearly catching Reed as he sprinted across the rubble. Callum, still watching from above, spoke weakened, still active. Back in orbit, Draenari technicians monitored the battlefield. One screen blinked red, then another, then a dozen. What's happening? Kalas asked. The tech turned pale. Multiple new human signatures, underground, powerful life signs, dozens of them. Kalas stepped forward. They're activating more soldiers. No, sir, the tech replied. These ones were already ready. We just didn't see them. Beneath the ruined city, thick steel doors opened. From them walked 20 Terran warriors, some still stretching from cryo, others already fully armed. One looked to the rest. No ranks, no salute. Just a single sentence. Last war, boys. Let's make it count. Back on the surface, the executioner rose again, damaged, armor cracked, eyes glowing red. Hale's squad had done more than anyone else ever had, but it wasn't enough. Hole raised his rifle. One more time, only to realize he was out of ammo. The executioner charged, roaring, then crack. A thunderous sniper round hit the executioner in the side of the head. It wasn't from Callum. It was heavier, louder. Another shot followed straight to the chest. The executioner collapsed. Smoke rising. Silence. A new voice came through Hale's comes, gravelly, rough, old. You called for backup. Hale smiled. Welcome back, Captain Riker. Briggs looked up, stunned, as shapes appeared on the rooftops, the rubble, and the streets. Humans, dozens of them, old armor, old weapons, but they moved like wolves, like ghosts, like homegrown death. Reed's eyes widened. That's Echo Team. Hale nodded slowly. The ones who never stopped fighting. In orbit, Kalos watched the new wave of Terran signals appear, moving fast, coordinated, silent. What are they? An officer asked. Kalos stared at the screen, voice low. Answer to extinction. Cliffhanger ending. On the surface, Hale stood over the executioner's broken body. It's red. I still blinked weakly. He pulled out a data spike and drove it into the machine's skull. Send this back to your fleet. Hale whispered. The message uploaded automatically, bouncing straight to the Draenari flagship it contained. Only video footage, short clips of every Draenari defeat, followed by words typed in Terran script. You landed on a death. You met its veterans. You haven't met its monsters yet. The Draenari fleet trembled. Not from weapons, not from storms, but from something far more dangerous. Fear. Inside the Draenari command ship, General Kalas paced the war room as the Terran transmission played again. You haven't met its monsters yet. A chill moved through every officer. The executioner, the Draenari's best, strongest warrior, had been defeated, not by an army, but by a handful of humans. Now dozens more were waking, moving, hunting. Carlas turned to his war strategist. How many more do they have? The officer shook his head. We don't know that world. It's not a battlefield. It's a breeding ground for killers. Earth surface, outskirts of ruined city. Hale stood with his squad, now joined by the reawakened veterans from Blacksite Echo. Captain Riker, tall and scarred, surveyed the horizon. His voice was low and rough. This planet's been burned before, he said, but it remembers how to bite. Briggs cleaned her knife. So, what's the plan? Wait for them to drop more toys. Hale shook his head. We go up. Everyone looked at him. You want to attack the fleet? Reed asked, surprised. Hale pointed toward the ridge. We've got one last satellite cannon hidden in the mountains, buried after the AI wars. Enough firepower to punch a hole in there. Line. Riker smirked. Still working. Hale shrugged. Only one way to find out. They moved fast through the forest, covered by Callum's sniping. Draenari patrols tried to intercept them, but they vanished before every ambush. The new veterans moved like phantoms, some of them to quiet, others grinning like they missed the sound of death. By the time the humans reached the mountain bunker, 3 Draenari squads had vanished. No survivors, only blood and symbols painted in Terran script. We warned you. Draenari orbit emergency meeting. General Kalas slammed his fist on the table. We've lost over 300 troops. The executioner is down. The humans are taking no territory but erasing everything we send. A warlord growled. Then we glassed the surface. Now, another voice replied, calm and sharp, and become legends for destroying a planet we couldn't conquer. Kalas clenched his teeth. He knew the truth. If they didn't pull back now, Earth would teach them what extinction really looked like. Earth Mountain Ridge. The humans reached the ancient satellite bunker. Reed and Briggs cut open the blast doors. Inside, an old nuclear pulse cannon, coated in dust but still glowing faintly blue. Still breathing, Riker muttered. Callum tapped the interface. Power at 40%. One shot. Hale nodded. One is all we need. Up above, Draenari Command finally made their mistake. They deployed their final ship, the Throne-class battlecruiser Varnixville. It was the pride of their fleet, 10 kilometers long, armor thick as moons, orbital weapons designed to crack planets. It hovered over Earth like a dark god. The message from orbit was broadcast globally. This is your final warning. Kneel or burn. Humans watched from underground. Bunkers, old colonies, scattered cities. They didn't kneel, they just waited back in the mountains. The Terran cannon roared to life. It hummed, lights flickering, metal shaking. Reed prepped the guidance. It's charging. Briggs shouted, 30 seconds to fire. Riker took a position near the hatch. Get ready for a return strike. Hale stared at the skies, then calmly fire. The sky split open. A beam of white-hot energy tore through the clouds, screaming into space like a spear thrown by a god. The Draenari battlecruiser didn't have time to move. The beam hit directly between its engines, and in one flash it ceased to exist. A burning cloud replaced the ship. Pieces of metal and fire rained down into orbit like falling stars. Inside the Draenari fleet, alarms screamed, panic spread. Throne-class ship destroyed. No energy readings before impact. They hit us with one cannon. General Kala watched the explosion. His face was pale. It's over, he whispered Earth. Later that night the sky was clear. The Draenei fleet, gone, pulled back silent. Not because they were defeated in numbers, but because they had seen what Earth truly was, a planet not of peace, but of scars, shadows, and fury. In the ruined city, SGT Hale sat beside a fire with his squad and the Echo. Veterans. Callum cleaned his rifle. Briggs sharpened a knife. Reed passed around old Earth rations. Laughing for the first time, Riker stared into the flames. They'll remember this, he said. Hole looked up at the stars. They won't come back. Riker nodded. Because they finally understand, Briggs added, smirking. Earth doesn't lose. Hale smiled faintly. No. He looked to the night sky, where broken ships still glowed in orbit. Earth survives. Final scene. Far away, in deep space, Draenei broadcasts warned every allied race. Do not land on the third planet. Do not provoke the humans. Do not awaken the Death World. And beneath the message, the last image showed SGT Hale standing in firelight, holding a rifle and smiling like he knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't.